Good morning, students. This is the complete video of the chapter Ruling the Countryside, and this video has been made for class 8th. Let us discuss this chapter. In this particular chapter, we will start discussion with the grant of Diwani and financial power. In the previous chapter, we already discussed that how after the Battle of Palasi and Battle of Buxar, Britishers got ownership of the country, or in other words, how they got command over the country. Now let us discuss how the Diwani rights and financial powers was transferred to the Britishers. The East India Company was made the Diwan of Bengal on 12th of August 1765. So after Battle of Buxar, through different treaty, finally in 1765, the East India Company was declared the Diwan of Bengal, and it was given by Shah Alam II. Thus the company became the chief financial administrator of the territory of Bengal. So here we can understand the entire revenue administration now was under the control of Britishers or East India Company. The company officials understood one important aspect of expanding their base in India. They understood the importance of those who had ruled the countryside in the past and had enjoyed authority and prestige. The company wanted to be careful not to annoy those people. We have to understand that from the very beginning, Jamindars were ruling there. So here the Britishers moved ahead, but in a very careful manner. They became the Diwan. They got the financial power, but it was not easy task for the Britishers to go ahead or to move ahead. So that is why they gave equal importance to the local people or local powerful people also. Here Robert Clive was accepting the Diwan. Now when the Britishers came or the East India Company came to power, they understood that if they wanted to rule the countryside, they required agricultural improvement, because most of the revenue was coming from the agriculture side. So that is why they decided to discuss or to decided to go with agricultural improvement. So under the agricultural improvement, they devised various formulas. Like the first one was the permanent settlement. As we already discussed that East India Company decided to give power or respect to the local people, particularly Jamindars. And with this concept, permanent settlement came into being. So what was the permanent settlement? The company had to take some steps to improve agriculture by improving investment in land. The permanent settlement was introduced in 1793, and according to this, the Rajas and the Talukdars were recognized as Jamindars and were given the responsibility of revenue collection from the peasants. Now here, the Rajas and Talukdars were granted the rights to become Jamindars and to collect taxes. So this is how the responsibility to collect taxes were given to the Jamindars. The amount to be paid was fixed permanently. Initially, the East India Company was getting the amount in various forms. They were not getting the permanent amount or fixed income. Now with the permanent settlement, the income became fixed. They told clearly that Jamindars would have to give the fixed amount to the East India Company, and the East India Company would think about the permanent income or fixed income only. So here it is written, the company officers felt that it would ensure a regular flow of income or revenue. They would also felt that this would motivate the Jamindars to invest in improving the land. The Jamindars would benefit from increased production because the revenue demand would not be increased. So here what was the benefit for the Jamindars? Whatever Jamindars could arrange or could generate, it was in the pocket of Jamindars, and rest fixed amount was going to the East India Company. So obviously Jamindars will try to get more and more revenue in order to give them profit. So that was the important concept that was introduced here. Now after that, we need to understand here there are some problems were there associated with the permanent settlement. Although this permanent settlement was very good for the company, but it created some problem also. What was those problems? Let us discuss. The revenue was fixed, as the name is there, permanent. So revenue was fixed, it was permanent. at such a high level that zamindars found it difficult to pay. No, the condition was very harsh. It was written that if zamindars would not pay the said amount or the said fixed amount, then the chances were there the zamindars would lose their zamindari system. So this was very harsh towards the zamindars. Situation changed by the first decade of the 19th century and the price rise and expansion in cultivation. The income of the zamindars increased, but it did not result in any gain for the companies. Now after some time, income increased and the zamindars started getting the profit. They're getting more revenue, but income was fixed for the East India Company. So East India Company was not getting any profit. On the other hand, zamindars were getting profit. So this is how we can see that permanent settlement was not accepted as a very good system. Now after that, in some parts of India at the same time, in the early 19th century, Mahalwari system was also in practice. So what was the Mahalwari system? It deserves to be mentioned that the company officials were planning to change the revenue system. A new system was devised. Holt Mackenzie was the person who was behind the Mahalwari system. He wanted to preserve the importance of village in the North Indian society. He wanted to give respect to the local mukhya or local leader of the village. So that is why he sent collectors to different villages to take a survey. Now data was recorded and land size and type of customs and rights of different groups were also collected. And after that, estimation was done. The village was known as Mahal. So here village was given responsibility to collect taxes per tally chief of the village. And hence this system was known as Mahalwari system. It was also decided to revise the revenue system periodically. The village headman or the sarpanch or the mukhya was given the responsibility of revenue collection. So that was good. That looks very good system, because here the zamindars were removed and now the East India Company was directly dealing with villagers. Now similarly, in some part of India, Monroe system was also in practice. So we discussed here that three main system was in practice. First one was the permanent settlement, second was the Mahalwari system, and third was the Monroe system or Raiyatwari system. So what was the system in the Monroe system? In this, farmers was declared as the owner of the land. The company made a revenue settlement directly with the peasants. That is, the taxes were directly collected from the farmers now. Now it was developed by Thomas Monroe in 1820, and that is why it is known as Monroe system. We need to understand this very carefully, that Monroe system was very suitable system, because here now village headmen, zamindars all were removed, and now East India Company started dealing with the peasants. So in all these three systems, we can easily understand that with the changing time, the revenue system also changed. But all these systems created a big problem. And what was that? It created the problem of excessive revenue demand. Whether it was the permanent settlement, whether it was the Mahalwari system, whether it was the Raiyatwari or Monroe system, these all created burden on the peasants. The revenue officials wanted to increase the income from land. Hence they fixed very high revenue demand. Peasants were not able to pay the revenue and Raiyats fled the countryside. So what was the impact? Finally, Raiyat or village men or the peasants, they fled the countryside village, and now the village became deserted or alone. So we can understand that entire village or entire countryside, they became isolated, they became deserted. That was the huge impact. That was the very negative impact. Now, when we are discussing about agriculture, we must understand that crop is the background. In fact, crop is the backbone of agriculture. So let us discuss what was the meaning and what was the importance of crop for Europe. By the late 19th century, the company was also trying to expand the cultivation of opium and indigo. Two important items were there in which Britishers were interested, or East India Company of that time was interested. One was opium, other was indigo. In the subsequent 150 years, the British also persuaded or forced the cultivators to produce other crops like jute, tea, sugarcane, cotton, wheat and rice to be supplied to Europe. So all these productions were going towards Europe. But one product was there which was exclusively cultivated for the trading purpose, and that was indigo. Why? Because it was in high demand all over the Europe. The tropical climate is good for indigo plantation. By the 13th century, Indian indigo was being used in Italy, France, and Britain. I mean to say there was a huge demand for Indian indigo, but the price was indigo was very high, and hence a small amount of Indian indigo could reach the European market. Because of the high price, very less indigo was reaching the European market. Now next one was the wood, and wood was another plant which was used for making violet and blue dyes. And wood is a plant of temperate zones, and hence it was easily available in Europe, and it was grown in northern Italy, southern France, and other parts of Germany and Britain also. But what was the problem? It was not able to produce the quality dye compared to indigo. So we can see here indigo was preferred. Why? Because it produced a rich blue color, whereas wood produced pale and dull blue. So the color that was coming from the indigo directly, it was very good. It was really blue. It was real blue, whereas the color that was coming from the wood was not very good. So it was very dull or pale. By the 17th century, European cloth producers pressurized the government to relax the ban on indigo imports. Now we have to understand that in Caribbean islands also, like in different islands also, Portuguese began indigo cultivation in Brazil also, British in Jamaica, and Spanish in Venezuela. North America was started in many parts of North America. Indigo plantation started. So all over the world now attention was given to the production of indigo. By the end of the 19th century also, industrialization started in Britain and cotton production expanded. This created an enormous demand for cloth dye. So when more and more clothes were developed, demand for dyes were also increased, and with the increase in demand for dye, the demand for more indigo was also increased. The indigo production in the world fell by half, but here we need to understand that basically it was coming from different area. No, and at the same time, the production that was coming from the Europe, it was declining over the time. So when production started declining, the attention got diverted towards India, because India was very good in the production of indigo. Now you can see here it is a wood plant that was producing a pale color or dull color of dye, blue dye. Now when Britishers diverted towards India, they adopted two different systems of indigo plantation. The first one was the niche cultivation. So in this system, the planter produced indigo on these lands which were under their direct control. That is why it is known as niche. Niche means self. Here the planter either bought the land or rented it from the other zamindars. He directly employed laborers to produce indigo. So it was under the hand of the particular peasants. But there was some problem with the niche cultivation or niche system of indigo plantation. What was the problem? Indigo could only be cultivated on fertile lands, but these areas were densely populated and hence only small plots could be acquired. This made it difficult to expand the area under niche cultivation, because most of the area was available for food grains. So it was very difficult to acquire the land for indigo plantation. They attempted to lease in the land around the indigo factory. While doing so, they evicted the peasants from the area. And after that, they acquired the land near the indigo factories, and this is because of that many peasants, they lost their land, or many peasants, they were asked to leave the homeland and settle in that area, We need to understand this. Got it? So we need to understand this. Here it is written that this was very difficult task to produce more and more niche cultivation. Now, after that, second system of cultivating indigo plantation was also there. It was the Rayat system or Rayati system. So under the Rayati system, indigo cultivation was done by a Rayat. The planters made the Rayat to sign a contract or an agreement, that is Sata. Sometimes they pressurized the village headman to sign the contract on the behalf of the Rayas or the peasants. After signing the contract, the Rayas got cash advances from the planters. But after taking the loan, the Rayat was committed to grow indigo on at least 25% of his land holding. But the planters brought indigo at very low price, and hence the Rayats were always in debt. We need to understand that under the Rayat system, the Rayat was asked to come in contract and after that they got advance also, but after the completion of the indigo plantation they were getting very less price. So this was the system that was adopted at the time. So we can see easily the problem was there, and because of that finally revolution started, that was termed as the blue revolution. So we need to understand thousands of Rayas in Bengal refused to grow indigo in March 1859. So with increase in pressure, or when pressure was increased, finally in Bengal revolution started against the East India Company or against the indigo plantation. The Rayat refused to pay rents to the planters. They attacked indigo factories also. They used to be armed with sword and spear, bow and arrows. Women also fought with pots, panda and kitchen implements. Those who worked for the planters were socially boycotted. The Gomastha were beaten up when they came to collect rent. The Gomastha were the agents of the indigo planters. So here we can see here that finally in Bengal revolution started against the indigo plantation. In many village area also headmen mobilized the indigo peasants against the Lathials. Where Lathials means Lathats were there of the Jamindars or the Talukdars. I mean to say here we need to understand that finally in Bengal people decided not to pay any taxes to the East India Company or not to go with the indigo plantation. This is why revolution started. After the revolt of 1857, British government was worried about the possibility of another popular revolt, and this created attention because already Britishers witnessed a revolution in 1856 and they were not ready to face another revolution. So finally the news of indigo, when the news is spread that indigo revolution is going on, Lieutenant Governor toured the region in the winter of 1859 and he paid sympathy towards the Rayas, and finally he promised that he would support. When the rebellion spread, intellectuals from Calcutta rushed to the indigo district. They began writing about the misery of the Rayas through their newspapers, through their articles, and the horrors of the indigo system. And government called the military to protect the planters. The Indigo Commission was set up to inquire into the commission of indigo production, and finally the commission held the planters guilty, and finally the system was completely abolished. It was completely abrupted. Now what was the situation after the revolt? We already discussed that revolt started in Bengal, but thereafter it was collapsed in Bengal. Finally, when it was collapsed in Bengal, it moved towards Bihar, and in Bihar the revolution indigo plantation started. Discovery of synthetic dyes in the late 18th century severely affected the business, but the planters managed to expand production. So we need to understand, when in Bengal revolution started, they moved towards Bihar, and finally in Bihar the situation became much tensed. The people were not able to give the taxes, or they were not able to produce the indigo, and 3 kathia system was in practice. It means that out of every 20 katha they need to produce on their best 3 kathas. So that was the system that was adopted. And finally Mahatma Gandhi returned from South Africa, and when he heard the plight of indigo farmers in Champaran, and finally he visited Champaran in 1917 and he started movement, and finally indigo planters got justice, and finally this indigo plantation system was abolished. So we can understand this is how indigo plantation created a deep thinking in the mind of Indians, that how the Britishers can go to an extent to fulfill their desires, to fulfill their profit. Basically Britishers were businessmen, and they could go to any extent to fulfill their desire, to fulfill their achievements, to fulfill their objectives, and we can easily understand. So this is the topic that we were discussing, that how the Britishers came, how they ruled the countryside, village side, and after that how they controlled the villagemen by adopting different revenue system, and after that how they targeted the agriculture, particularly for profit. Like they could also move with food grains, but they saw that profit is more in indigo plantation, and that is why they adopted indigo plantation. So this is all about in this chapter. Thank you so much for your participation.